Day 2 of Big Ten Media Days out here in Las Vegas. I'm Steven, that's Stefan, and that's Andrew, which meant the reigning Big Ten champions, Oregon, is here, and the other team they played in the Big Ten championship is Penn State, who was the preseason Big Ten favorite this year, was also talking today. And they brought up a question, and we're not allowed to take into account that one is actually on the schedule, and the other one they would only have to play in Indianapolis. Who is a bigger threat, Penn State or Oregon, to Ohio State in 2025? Stefan.
Can Andrew go first?
Yeah, Andrew can go first.
It's Penn State, which I know for those who have watched and listened and
Thought he was gonna pick Oregon.
I literally thought he was going to pick Oregon because I wanted to pick Oregon. Or no. Whatever. Just talk about Penn State.
So one of the things that for those who have watched, listened, whatever, you know how high I am on Dan Lanning as a coach, as on Oregon as a program, how highly I think that program is going to win a national championship in a couple of years with Lanning at the helm. I don't think it's going to be this year. I look at Penn State and I see the makings of a team that could give Ohio State some problems. I look at Oregon and you see, okay, you lose Jordan Birch, you lose a lot on defense. Their receiver situation is really dicey at Oregon. We asked Dan Lanning about Ja'Corian Moore because, not every freshman receiver is Ryan Williams or Jeremiah Smith, and they're going to have to ask that guy to play really, really good football, and a lot of it for Oregon. And then you get to Penn State, and you have a really, really good running game. I think Singleton and Allen are top 3 duo in the country right now. I think they have the best offensive line in the country. They still have a very, very talented defense. I know they lost Tyler Warren. I know they lose Abdul Carter. I know they lose some other pieces on defense, but Drew Aller is one of those kids where you can look at and say, you know what, he has gotten better every year he's been a starter. And while you might not like him right now as a quarterback, I think it's undeniable that he has gotten better and progressed from year 1 to year 2 to year 3. So to me, if you see another progression from Drew Aller, that is a team that could give Ohio State some problems. Like I know you said, they're on the schedule, but what is something in typically Ryan Day Ohio State history that has given Ohio State some fits? When a team plays bully ball and when a team can run the football. And like I said, I think Penn State's going to have the best offensive line in the country, and I think they're going to have a top 3 running game in the country, and that is going to be a really, really tough task for Ohio State's defensive line, which we have questions about at defensive tackle. So I think it's Penn State. I understand the James Franklin top 5 record thing. I understand that Penn State hasn't beaten Ohio State since 2016. I understand all of that. On paper, it's Penn State.
Stefan, the new Oregonite.
I wanted you to go first because I thought you were going to pick Oregon. I could do a little devil's advocate, but I can still do devil's advocate. That's all right. One funny thing that I kind of thought of what you were talking there. What if Ohio State slips up like at Illinois or at Washington and James Franklin finally comes into Columbus and wins, but it's not a top 5 game? That'd be pretty sweet. That would be pretty sweet because he would debunk a narrative without debunking a narrative. That would just be quite funny for Penn State. I can easily talk myself into Oregon because the James Franklin aspect is real to it. There's intangible stuff that goes into football games. We talk about it with Ryan Day in Michigan. That can't exist with James Franklin in Ohio State, especially playing on the road. And then even in the playoff, I'll take Ohio State over James Franklin. But I think there is an element to this on the field as well of Dante Moore can be really good for Oregon if he ends up being their starting quarterback. You talk about Drew Aller and his progression. Well, Dylan Gabriel, Oregon last year, was a Heisman finalist. Bo Nix at Oregon last year, or a couple years ago, was, if not a Heisman finalist. Well, yeah, so both those guys at Oregon were just as successful as what we think maybe Drew Aller could be this year. So why can't that be Dante Moore over the course of this season? Especially if Ohio State were to play them in December or January. Now we're talking about Dante Moore with experience under his belt, and then you talk about the defensive lineman that Oregon has, the talent that they're always going to have on the outside at receiver. I could easily talk myself into Oregon being more of a threat because I know if they play Ohio State, it's in the postseason, and I know that all these new pieces for Oregon, they've had time to gel, and they've made it to the college football playoff. They're probably humming at that point, and they'd be a tough matchup, and Dan Lanning has proven that he can beat Ohio State.
I don't think this is a conversation. Yeah, he's 1-15 against top 5 teams. He's 4-20 against top 10 teams, so it's not like it's that much different. Dante Moore might be good, and you're talking about not every freshman receiver can be Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams. There's a gap there. Okay, Jeremiah Smith is an athletic freak. Ryan Williams is not. I think DeCorian Moore can be as good as Ryan Williams was last year. In fact, I am expecting him to be as good as Ryan Williams. The pressure is maybe a little bit more on because Evan Stewart is out for the season, but DeCorian Moore being Oregon's wide receiver 1 this year does not shock me whatsoever, and it's still James Franklin. It's still James Franklin here. So here's what I expect is going to happen in that Penn State game. Whether they lose or win at Illinois, it's going to be competitive for 4 quarters, and then Ohio State's going to win the game. And then we're going to go, man, Ohio State really pulled out a tough one against Penn State. Penn State's got a lot of pressure on them right now. They're the preseason favorite in the cleveland.com Big Ten media poll. Other people have done media polls where they're also the number 1 team. It's because they have done the same formula that Ohio State and Michigan did as the previous 2 national champions by just bringing a bunch of dudes who weren't clear top 10 draft picks back. Except they have not proven over the last couple of years here that they can pull out big wins. Ohio State has a Michigan problem. They don't have a problem with anybody else in the country. Michigan had a cheating problem, but they didn't really have a problem with anything else. Oregon has already beaten Ohio State, and Ohio State was angry about that. Mixed with the Michigan game, it kind of sparked something that led to a college football playoff run. If you think that Oregon getting blown out in the Rose Bowl means that we should be looking at Oregon differently now, I think that's the wrong look.
The only thing the Rose Bowl told me was that Ohio State team, we can start looking at them differently.
In fact, I think that might be the win that kind of sparks Oregon going forward. And I think Dante Moore, no, he's not as experienced as the 25-year-olds that Dan Lanning was starting before this, but he's probably more talented than the 25-year-olds. So if you're telling me by the time they get to Indianapolis, if they're facing Ohio State in that game, Dante Moore, who does have starts under his belt as a former 5-star, is ready to go, and he's got this year's version of elite freshman wide receiver. Mateo Uyunglele might be the second best defensive player in the Big Ten behind Caleb Downs. And he's honestly might be the most dominant player in the Big Ten when you talk about the type of game-wrecking ability that he has. I expect James Franklin and Penn State to play Ohio State tough, but I don't think they'll ever win that game. I expect Oregon to play Ohio State tough. And in the 4th quarter, I go, maybe Oregon pulls out that one. So the thing that gives Penn State the edge is because they're actually on the schedule. But if we're actually going to go talent for talent and how much I believe in the coaching staffs and the programs right now, I think it's, for me, without question, Dan Lanning and Oregon Ducks like blowing away. Get the text 614-350-3315. Let us know what you think. It's a 2-week free trial, $3.99 after that. That's Andrew. That's Stefan. I'm Steven. That's day 2 of Big Ten Media Days.